Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to the channel. I am here today to talk about a book that I normally wouldn't talk about, a book genre I would normally avoid, or not avoid necessarily, but skip, and that is the cozy mystery genre. So I will be talking about Murder, She Wrote, Gin and Daggers, and this was written by Donald Bain. So what I'm actually holding here is the Signet republished version that came out in the year 2000. The original novel was published in 1989, but there were some errors, some continuity errors between the series and that original 1989 version. So I guess over the years, people wrote in and complained about these different errors. For example, one that stands out to me is the fact that Jessica drove a car in the original novel, which if you've watched the series, you know that Jessica Fletcher does not know how to drive a car. That's not something she's ever learned. So because of the fan backlash in 2000, this republishing was done. So this reprinting, whatever you want to call it, it was re-released with all of those continuity errors removed, or at least most of them. I didn't notice any when I was going through this, so I think he got most of them. But this is actually book number 1 of what is currently, at the time of this recording, a 50-book series. Donald Bain wrote the first 46 novels. He started writing novel 47, but unfortunately he passed away while writing that. The last 3 that he wrote, he actually wrote, co-wrote with his wife. I originally said in my pickups video that he wrote it with his daughter, so I apologize for that mistake. It was his wife, not his daughter. But book 47 was actually, he was partnering with his grandson in writing that one. Unfortunately, he passed away. Then another author came around, and his name is John Land, and that who has taken over the books from then. He finished writing novel number 47, and then has continued on through there. Currently, we're at novel number 50. In late May, we should have book release number 51, assuming that none of the pandemic changes any of this. And then late November will be novel 52. And those are, of course, written by John Land. So this series is still going, and it's still going strong. I can't believe there are about to be 52 novels in this series. This is simply book number 1. So I want to talk a little bit about why this interests me, because the cozy mystery genre is not something I'd normally pay attention to or care about. But it's because of the title. I was actually looking through an old video to see if I could remember how I found these books or how I came across them in the first place, but all I'd say in that video that I thought it was in was just the fact that I did find these and eventually picked them up. So that didn't help me. But though I can't remember exactly how I first heard about these or first discovered that these existed, I do remember when I first bought one, and it was at my library book sale, back when those were still a thing before this whole pandemic hit. So I ended up paying 20 cents each for these. I don't remember if I got this one through the book sale or if I bought it from a used bookstore after the fact, but either way, I was paying very little money for them, so I decided I'd give them a shot. Honestly, I didn't think I'd enjoy it at all, so I figured, let's grab some because they're cheap and then go from there. But then, of course, my collecting instincts took over, and as I saw more, I had to kind of fill in the gaps I had, so I currently have the first dozen of these Murder, She Wrote books, but this was a series that I grew up watching. My mom watched these a lot. My grandma watched these a lot. And I spent a ton of time with both of them as I was growing up. And so it was something that's always near to me. Just the name alone, I always enjoyed them. Even if I didn't seek them out, I don't watch them now. I can't tell you the last time I've actually seen an episode of Murder, She Wrote. But, you know, in the past, I've always loved it and I've always enjoyed them as for the little mysteries that they are. So that's the reason I decided to dive into this. And I put it on my top 10 books or 10 books to read in 2020 list. Something else I wanted to touch on before I dive into the review is about Donald Bain himself, so the author of this novel. I was doing some research, and as you guys know, I have kind of fallen whole hog into the novelization world of books and the adaptation book. I talk a ton about adaptations, so that's just something I've always been interested in, and I'm just kind of going for it real hard at the beginning, at least at the beginning of this year. We'll see how long it lasts, but what I've come to find out is that these are actually referred to in the publishing world as media tie-in books. These are books that are based on other media, so be it movies, TV series like this one, video games, card-playing games like Magic the Gathering, role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, whatever it is. Basically, any book that's written based on a world created in another piece of media can fit into this media tie-in genre that I've become so smitten with recently. With this, I've actually discovered that there is an international association of media tie-in writers, which is actually very fitting for this because Jessica Fletcher is going to a conference for the International Society of Mystery Writers, so it's very fitting to what I'm talking about today. But with the reason I bring this up is because this International Association of Media Tie-in Writers has something that they started in 2007 called the Scribe Awards. And one of the awards that they give out is like their Lifetime Achievement Award, essentially, is called the Grandmaster Award. Now, before I talk more about that, let me talk about some of the authors who have received this award. It's basically a who's who in the media tie-in world. So, for example, Alan Dean Foster, who's known for the original Star Wars novel, the original Alien novel, very well-known author. A.C. Crispin, who wrote a lot of the Star Trek novels, and actually I think wrote, her name's Anne Crispin. I think she also wrote the Han Solo trilogy, amongst other, tons of other things. Some other ones are Kevin J. Anderson, who wrote the Young Jedi Knights, or Young Jedi Academy, Young Jedi Knights, whatever it is, that series that I'm collecting, the young adult Star Wars novels that I'm collecting, and I almost have them all. I'm not quite there yet, though. And Timothy Zahn, who is probably the most well-known Star Wars writer that's out there. So these are big names. These are the who's who of novelizations, of media tie-in writers. So who was the very first person to be named the Grandmaster? That, of course, was Donald Bain. So that gives you just a good idea of the quality of writing that you're going to get when you read a Donald Bain novel. With all of that out of the way, the ultimate question becomes, did I enjoy my time with Murder, She Wrote, Gin and Daggers? Well, let's dive right in. I will say right at the top that this is a spoiler-free review of Gin and Daggers. So if you don't want the ending spoiled for you, you can still watch this review before reading the book. This is spoiler-free, so don't worry about that aspect of it. In Gin and Daggers, Jessica Fletcher, who is one of the world's most renowned mystery writers, is traveling to London to attend a conference for the International Society of Mystery Writers, or ISMW. And while she's there, she's going to spend some time with her best friend and her mentor, Marjorie Ainsworth. If Jessica is the world's second best mystery writer, then Marjorie is the world's best. Unfortunately, though, while she's there, in the middle of the night, her best friend is murdered. And in the room where she's murdered is a necklace that belongs to Jessica. She actually got it from her late husband. So the police believe that, well, they find the necklace there, so they believe she's a suspect, and they believe that she has the motivation to commit this murder because it would put her on top of the mystery writing world. And so they are not letting her leave, which there's a bunch of people in the mansion the night the murder happens, and none of them are able to leave. But obviously the story is focusing around Jessica, so she's not allowed to leave London, so she's forced to stay there for a while, which frankly isn't a bad thing for her because she was planning on staying for a number of days anyway to attend the conference. It's just now, unfortunately, her best friend's been murdered, and of course now she needs to figure out who did it. So that's what we're following. That's a story we're following in Gin and Daggers. As I mentioned in the intro, the cozy mystery genre is not one that I've spent any time with, not one that I'd normally care about, but given the fact that it was Murder, She Wrote, I wanted to give it a shot. So I didn't really know what to expect coming into this just because I've never read anything like this before. I typically read very hard horror, sci-fi, thrillers, things that have a lot of violence, a lot of sex, a lot of gore, a lot of craziness to them. That's not what the cozy mystery genre is. At least that's not what I thought about it heading into it. So doing a little research before I started, I was under the impression, that the cozy mystery series was basically, or a cozy mystery genre was basically going to be a Lifetime movie, but in book form. I even tried to sell my mom on reading these books using that description before I've even read them. And, I'm happy to say, I don't like Lifetime movies, obviously. And so I'm very happy to say that, yes, the violence and the sex is turned way down, but there's still a lot that I enjoyed here. The charm is turned up to 11, frankly. And that makes Jessica so damn likable. She spends, a good amount of her time just doing whatever the hell it is she wants to do. And that strong will made me like her even more as the story progressed. And along the way, she meets a ton of really interesting characters that built out this world that Donald Bain is creating, because obviously we're stepping outside of her comfort zone, of Jessica's comfort zone, of Cabot Cove, and so it's interesting to see how he handles the world of London. Speaking of London, I really like the setting for this novel. You know, when thinking back to the TV series, I don't recall any episodes. Obviously there are plenty, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, there are some that I can remember that were outside of Cabot Cove, but obviously Cabot Cove is kind of the hot spot. That's where she lives, that's her home in Maine, and so this is much different. And so I was really interested to see how Jessica would hold herself in this new setting. And I'm pleased to report that she is just as much of a firecracker in London as she would be in Cabot Cove. But putting her in this different setting made it really interesting for me to read. She even has a scary moment while she's walking through the streets of London at one point in the novel, but it does nothing to deter her. Like, she is just a genuine badass, but does it in the sweetest, most unassuming way you can imagine. It's so much fun to read. There is actually a romantic plotline that finds its way into this novel, and I didn't expect that at all. I can't remember watching any episodes of the series, and again, it's probably been 10, 15 years since I've seen a single episode, but I don't remember any really ever touching on her love life, at least not in the way that this does. I'm happy to say, though, that Donald Bain handles this subplot remarkably well. The romance feels genuine, it feels sweet, it feels natural throughout the entire time. And the best part is it moves the plot forward. It's not just a subplot. It's not just something that's added on for the hell of it. It is a personal and a professional relationship between these two, and it is always moving things forward to try to get to that ultimate whodunit that we're looking for at the end of the novel. With the cozy mystery genre, at least from what I read about it coming into it, was that you are almost always going to get everything you need in that one novel. You're going to have the who did it in what room with what weapon in every single novel, so they all work as standalone novels. I expected that coming in, and this one follows that very well. Like, this is definitely a standalone. The fact that it's book number 1 in this series really meant nothing. Like, I wasn't introduced to these characters in any way, shape, or form, really. So, you know, keep that in mind if you don't know these characters at all. I don't know if you'd enjoy it as much as I did, but, you know, I have a feeling if you're watching this, you probably have some familiarity with the Murder, She Wrote series. But anyway, that said, I didn't guess the ending to this one. There are some some fun twists and turns that Bain throws at you as you go through this novel. And then watching it all wrap up in the end was really, really cool. I really liked how it all came together. Keep in mind, though, that I typically don't guess the endings of a lot of different books, even mysteries. Like, you know, in the Agatha Christie novels I was reading, I think I predicted the killer in one of those out of the 3 or 4 that I've read. So me not knowing who the bad guy was in this might be something that means nothing to you, because you might just be better at guessing endings than I am. The best part of this book, the best aspect, was Bain's writing style. He is just enjoyable to read. He really has a grasp of Jessica Fletcher in only the first book. Now, again, it's been a while since I've seen the series, but this is how I remember her. This is like exactly how I remember her. So Bain has captured her voice here really well, and that makes it just so much fun to go through. I keep saying the word charming, but this really is just a charming little novel that I'm so glad I read. Like I mentioned earlier, I have 12 of these, and I'm shocked, but I'm genuinely excited to get on to book number 2, which I hope to do sometime soon, because I enjoyed this one quite a bit. This, of course, will not be for everyone, but if you're looking for a lighthearted, warm, charming, well-written, cozy mystery, then you might want to give Gin Daggers a shot. I ended up giving Murder, She Wrote, Gin Daggers, written by Donald Bain, 4 out of 5 stars. That's going to do it for my review of Gin Daggers. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's something that is a little bit outside of the normal content that I talk about here, but given the fact that it is a media tie-in piece, it kind of does relate just because I've been obsessed with it lately. So let me know down in the comments below if I've talked you into checking this one out. And is there any other cozy mysteries that you guys may have read that you recommend? I would love to hear those recommendations down in the comments section below. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to Cinefessions here on YouTube. And if not, thank you anyway for watching this one. I really appreciate it. Alright, so that's going to do it for today. I want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.